who is so multifaceted. I haven't met anyone who has such a prolific author, writer, and the plethora of things he's done in his life, which he will tell us a little bit about. So Henrik De Gyor, is that the right pronunciation of your name?
Mm-hmm. Henrik. Mm-hmm.
Henrik is a consultant and runs a company called Another DAM Consultancy. This is DAM, Digital Asset Management, not to use it in any other bad way. So Henrik's going to tell us a little bit about who he is and what he does, and we get right into some of the conversation about all the amazing things you do.
Hi, Raju. Thanks so much for making the time and having me on your show. Again, I'm Henrik De Gyor. I'm a consultant, a podcaster, a speaker, and a 9 times author. So I have 9 podcasts and working on my 10th book now in 2023.
Wow, the operative number is 9, huh?
For now.
Well, I met you a few weeks ago, and we met in an authors and a writers club, thanks to you, Henrik. So I've just been so taken by all the knowledge you possess in the life that you've had so far. And the topic that we were going to delve into a little bit today was synthetic media, which encompasses so many different things. And rather than me butchering what it means, how about you tell the listeners what it is and why should they be interested in this in today's world in 2023?
Sure. So it's actually the title of my book, my 9th book, Synthetic Media, The Next Reality. What is synthetic media is your question, and probably the ask of anybody who's listening to this, since it's not on the tip of everyone's tongue, is basically media that's created by machines. So it's not artificial media. It's not media created by humans. It's literally created by artificial intelligences. Generative AI is one of those. We're hearing things like ChatGPT and DALL-E and a few others. And you're going to see text to video, like literally you type in text and you get video output without any studio, without any models, without any lighting, without any microphones. You get text to video, text to image, like DALL-E, where you type in a sentence and it creates the image that you just mentioned. That's coming to many stock photo agencies like Getty and Shutterstock very shortly, where if you don't find the exact image you need, you can make the image, have it be generated based on, well, I wanted that image, but I wanted the people with glasses, or I wanted them without this other thing. And you can just type in what you want. So you don't have to wait for a photographer to go create it, which is just mind blowing for creatives. Mm-hmm. And it's not taking away jobs. It's actually empowering them. If you think about it, it's taking away the need for technical skills to a degree to create. So it's now on us to be more creative, whether it's video, whether it's image, whether it's text to text, where I create a small sentence and I get a paragraph of information just by typing in a couple words on that is very contextual and original. It's not a grab from the internet. It is 100% authentic, which is a little bit frightening. Unfortunately, it's leading to people cheating in school. And now it's also leading to students getting caught doing that, which is fascinating. But beyond just text and what you see and what you hear and what you can listen to, as far as media as we define it today, what it also is doing is redefining what we are going to define as media in the near future. So normally we understand written, video, what we hear on the radio or on our phone, etc. As far as music is concerned, now it's going to be what you can not only hear and see, but feel, taste, and smell will be the future media that will actually be machine made, which is fascinating. And it'll be prompted by a human saying, I want a smell that looks like that smells like this. I want a taste that is like this. And that's already been requested. It's already been tested. It already exists. It just hasn't been mass produced as far as the tools to make it available for us. So the gloves that give you tactile feel down to 1/10 of a millimeter, right? To feel something, right? To 1/10 of a millimeter, which is like nothing, right? Those are enormous. They're like 5 times bigger than my hand right now. So that's not for everyone. Plane manufacturers, car manufacturers are using them to prototype a vehicle before it exists, so they can feel it. Some aircraft manufacturers are using it to sell the plane before it is built, which is fascinating. So there's so many opportunities there as far as media that machine will be creating and making available to us to open our minds to more creative endeavors rather than limiting us to only the creative tools that we had technical knowledge around. And that's going to open up a lot of things. So that's synthetic media for you in a nutshell.
Wow, it's a complicated nutshell, though, because
yes,
so hopefully most of the people in our audiences are there could be anybody, obviously, but for my particular audience tends to be mid 40s, 50s, people in corporate life who are running different businesses and companies, etc. I know that companies are already adopting a lot of it, but as far as the individual, I mean, you mentioned that this doesn't affect. It should actually empower people, not that the people will lose jobs. But, I go back to what has been well known that, we only tend to use a very tiny percentage. I don't know what the percentage is. I used to be 3%, 5% of our brains. And if this happens, if it becomes real, what you're describing, then should we not be even more scared that we're going to be utilizing even less of our brains in the future? As opposed
we could,
to more,
yes.
More.
Yeah, we could. To your exact point, it could create more spam in an automated way. It could create more cheating. It could create things that it's writing articles as we speak for a variety of publications. Mm-hmm. It's writing cookbooks without ever diving into recipes. It's doing a pile of other things that is too numerous to name. Mm-hmm. It's creating training videos of people that you've never seen before, telling what you need to do whatever mm-hmm. you need to, or in said business. So there's a whole variety of things that are possible with less effort, to your point, mm-hmm. but it still takes someone to prompt it. It's not auto-prompted by the machine. Mm-hmm. Someone has to nudge it in a specific way. So there's a term called prompt engineer, right? Mm. Which is basically how original can you come up with a phrase to make it nudge it the right direction when you're doing a text to some kind of output. And that is I'm going to say an art, not a science, of how that works. But to your point around the consciousness and the effort, it's going to be more creative effort than intellectual or logical effort, if you will, if that makes sense.
Right. So the use of the brain is an intellectual, idea, right? Versus the consciousness is the creative part of that brain, is not really the same thing, right? So that's what you're saying. This is distinction.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
I looked at some of the references that you gave. ChatGPT, less than 8 weeks now into the market, and it's taken, people by storm. And you showed me some of the examples like Synthesia, and I watched the video that you guys put together around GANs. So all of these things, be they machine learning or machine learned, created, do you not, considering or given what I do, build bold conscious leadership kind of stuff, which is deeper into the consciousness of who we are, and it relates mostly to the heart centeredness. When we talk about being in the moment and living in the present, isn't a lot of this synthetic media that you talk about and some of the examples that we've gone through in like Synthesia, we could put some notes in there. I'll put some notes in for people to go check them out. Is it still not based on the past? Because it's, everything is a reflection of the past. And how do I see a future that does not exist? If that's what I want to see, now to your point about the plane, I mean, if somebody imagines a kind of plane that somebody wants to build, and it's already, you can smell the inside of a plane or maybe touch it or feel it, etc., and certainly see it and hear it. I mean, it's still based on the past. And how can I see a future that doesn't yet exist through these synthetic media? Sorry for the long-winded explanation.
No, that's a great question. So to your point, yes, we very often rely on the past to create our future, right? And we iterate based on that. We change it iteratively and in small steps, typically. What this is a fairly big game changer in the sense that you can film the unfilmable. You can create images that are not possible with a lens or with our current technologies in the real world. You can create smells that don't exist yet. You can recreate tastes that no longer exist, that did in the past, from plants that don't exist anymore. So all these things are possible, which opens up the mind to different ways of thinking, because most people aren't thinking, to your point, they're thinking about the past.
Yes.
And they're relying on that, to your exact point, for their next steps. It's like, well, I had success doing this, so I should do this again and again and again and again. And that's I'm going to say you should challenge that to seeing how you can do it much better, much faster, and potentially even less expensive by using some tools like this. Not necessarily all three in all respects, but it's definitely a way to expand the possibilities a lot more, in the sense that don't rely just in the past, because the past is how we've done things in the past.
Right.
And now you have a new opportunity again and again and again. And it's like shooting film, where you had to pay for every single image you took. And now you have a digital camera and you take infinite amounts of pictures and it costs you close to nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So you have infinite number of tries. It costs you almost nothing, because these tools are fairly inexpensive at this point in time. People aren't monetizing them significantly right now. They're still in heavy development, and they're incrementally changing dramatically in weeks, if not months, sometimes, much more than the programmers ever could imagine. That's how fast it's moving. So in 1 year, literally in 2022, we watched things get from very rigid to fully flexible. It looks like they're doing yoga with avatars, lifelike avatars that you cannot tell that they're not human, because they have the micro gestures. You can control every single micro gesture, which is just absolutely amazing. And I think I shared Emma
That's
from
right.
Ziva Dynamics.
Right. Yeah, Ziva Dynamics.
Which I dare you to see and tell. It was so amazingly lifelike that they were immediately bought by another studio after they released that, because while it's not an inexpensive avatar, you basically digitize someone's face, or you use a face that's already existing, and you can make them do anything you want. Now, to some people, that's scary, right? And there's been, a checkered past in the deep fakes, right? That made the news for the last handful of years.
Yep.
That's how it started. Most technologies start in the nefarious, if you think about it.
Yep.
Photoshop, for example, everyone thought that when Photoshop came out, everyone would be using it for porn. Remember that? Now we're well beyond that, right? Bitcoin and blockchain, well, that still has a checkered past here and there, but it's doing a lot more than just Silk Road, if you remember that story.
Yes. Yep.
So we're going beyond that, and it's a matter of challenging those and seeing the other possibilities beyond the nefarious, because the nefarious is how things get started, and they often have the money and the means and the interest, let's just say, the not so positive interests to making that so. And then people see that and they go, wait, I could use it for this positive endeavor. Whoa, that should be amazing. And that's exactly what happens. So in my podcast, also called Synthetic Media, I interview people mostly about the positive endeavors of this. Like I interviewed the person who came out with Deep Tom Cruise, where they synthesized an actual impersonator of Tom Cruise, and they basically replaced his face with Tom Cruise's face, so that Tom Cruise would be doing things that you normally wouldn't ever see him do, and they're actually quite humorous. And his whole purpose was to put a smile on people's face, to do entertainment. Because remember, where did comedy go? Yeah. Remember? It disappeared. So we may as well, try that again.
Well, when Tom Cruise is no longer a young-looking Tom Cruise, you could still have Tom Cruise alive and well and act in films in the future, sounds like, right? Yes. And that's scary
absolutely.
too.
And so actually, if you think about it, there are actors and other celebrities that have fully synthesized themselves.
Sure.
And they're still acting even though they've retired. So one perfect example is Bruce Willis. So well-known actor. Yeah. He synthesized himself. He's still in ads, and he doesn't show up to the ad shoot at all. He just sends his avatar, and they license his avatar for N period of time. They produce the ad they want, as many takes as they want, right? And they get to borrow his voice, and he still gets paid the same amount of money. He still gets paid $1 million an ad. Oh darn! What's the problem there, right? And so if like you have to understand that this is a oh no, much better than that. Much better. It's an actual when you see the ads, you're kind of like wondering like what happened, where's it going, and often this is in other countries. Interestingly enough, because Europe is actually in the forefront of this. Europe, not the United States, and not as much in Asia. Shockingly enough. Not yet. And so the Americas are kind of behind, to be perfectly honest, because they are more, I'm going to say, reserved in the sense of privacy and rights and things like that. Right. And well, in Europe, they have those too, but they're more open to comedy and things like that. Yeah. So they were much more willing because their second favorite indoor sport is not lawsuits in Europe. So that's a big game changer there. So it's very popular in Europe. There's I can't name how many of I've been tracking over 200 companies that do synthetic media in all respects, and I'd say the majority is in Europe. Interestingly,
wow, that is interesting. Well, so in the work of this, I don't like to have my future be dictated by the past. So it's heartening to note what you described, that if it's going to open up more possibilities and we're going to embrace the unknown, we better start embracing the unknown now and not worry about like, oh, I learned this from my mistake and therefore it validates how things can go wrong. We can't go by that. We just have to say, okay, well, that's all gone. Now it's anew. How do we think about this differently, right? Or just see how it works. Yep.
Exactly. And the barrier to entry is if you can log into a screen, right? Like to watch this video for the sake of argument, you can or listen to this audio. You can type in something and see the results almost instantaneously within a few seconds.
We're experiencing with ChatGPT. That's just such a simple thing. As you said earlier, we no longer have to do a search, not saying Google search, any search. And then you get these links where you can then have to go research and, go validate whatever your data is that you're looking for. Here, you don't have to do that. You get pretty solid, as you said, authentic information. I may not be 100% accurate, but pretty accurate because it's based on...
No. As accurate as Google results will give you.
Right.
If you think about it.
Far more, probably.
Potentially. I mean, some of it is sometimes not 100% accurate. That's a known thing. Just like Dolly results are not always perfect. Let's be honest. And there's going to be errors. Just like if you type in something or not enough words into Google and you get the first hits, and you're like, not really. That's what
That's
what I was looking for,
right?
right? So same thing there. So and honestly, Google and Microsoft are very interested in competing in this, and they already are, and they have ownership to a degree, and a stake in this. So so they're really interested in entering this game really soon, because it's going to help their platforms if you think about it,
right?
And it's going to help their users too,
right?
And eventually it's going to make people a lot of money. Right now, they're raking in the companies who are doing this are raking in millions of dollars in funding to continue growing and building these tools, which is a great thing. And it'll continue developing, and there'll be hiccups here and there. Like one of the major questions is the data sets that they're using, massive data sets, but are they ethically, scraped? Where are they coming from, right? So you'll see some lawsuits here and there. We'll see if they have teeth or if it falls to the wayside. We'll see if it changes the game. It likely will change some things. Just as you mentioned, ChatGPT has grown significantly since its introduction. There was, I think, 1 million users within a week or so.
Yes,
which is unheard of, right?
It's 10 million as of 3 weeks ago. So I don't know what the numbers are now.
Yeah, it's only growing. I mean, I tried to log in earlier last week, and I couldn't log in because they were still.
I'm on a wait list.
Still adding servers.
I'm on a wait list of some sort.
Yeah. That'll happen. Yeah, because everyone wants to try.
Yeah, sorry, you need to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
So before we let go of this subject, but as far as its impact on employees of companies, because everyone, in these last 2 or 3 years have been basically gotten on the defensive, mental issues, well-being issues, corporates have focused on more well-being issues and, caring more for employees, et cetera. But yet there is still 70% dissatisfaction and lack of fulfillment in the workforce. Is this going to help it, or is it going to hurt it?
That's a great question. So there have been some synthetic media tools that can sense mental illness and spot it based on your voice, based on how you react in a video profile. And so if you need to track it, there are certain professionals that will use the software to help and find trend and identify it faster, and then diagnose it faster as well when it's necessary, right? To prevent a variety of things that we don't even have to talk about because mental illness is rampant, sadly. And so yes, it's not only about creative, but it's also about what are the use cases for it, right? It's not only about creating new things, but finding new avenues of not only business, but of assistance, right? So
that was just one question, mental issues, but it could be anything, right? Dissatisfaction with the work I do, disgruntled, or just not happy, and I don't have the confidence to go jump and look for something else out there because I don't know, is that better? But this particular synthetic media applications becoming more rampant and becoming more prevalent, how does that impact employee, as I said, negatively or positively?
I don't think it'll affect them directly for a while, unless they want to try it out or they have a purpose to try it out and use it and see what are the results compared to something else, right? Some businesses are probably going to be more attracted to this more than others. Potentially the creatives, the marketing, the folks, but I think it's a matter of wanting to try it versus needing to try it. To your point, Got it. And it is a choice still, right? Some people are afraid of because it was before ChatGPT, it was mostly image based, which you would think is harder to generate images, moving images such as video, or still images like photographs.
Right.
And that had a personal nature that was tied to it, back to the deepfake porn, for example, which was fairly rampant. And there's, I mean, porn's not going to go away whether we like it or not. That's the sad reality.
Yeah.
And it was assisting it because it would create revenge porn, very simply. And that's a fear factor for a number of people for obvious reasons. People are becoming victimized by it.
Yes.
But then there's all the other things. So when ChatGPT came out, there's no image, right? It's literally just text. And we text all day long, right? Whether it's on a computer, or on a phone, or whatever. So text removes the image barrier, right? Like, oh, how are you going to use my likeness today? Whether I'm male, female, or whatever, right? So it's a matter of taking away the fear as well. So, or reducing it by saying, okay, this is a lower, better barrier to entry because it's just text, right? It's not your likeness. I'm not making copies of you, right? I'm not going to have you say or do something that you've never done, right? Nefariously or whatever, or with ill intent or without your consent, more importantly, and things like that. So if that answers your question, it's a matter of wanting to try it versus needing to try it. I think the wants are coming to the top right now. Right.
Okay, so it's a rapid test environment. It seems like as more and more people are at least wanting to get the sense of it. I mean, look at what's that application that went crazy with imaging with the photos? Lenzia, or is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Well, everybody's changing their avatars and pictures on Facebook and like perfectly designed, person's face. Well,
of course,
that took by storm too. And
of course, yeah. Well, if it makes you look better, how many people don't want that? I can't name of many who don't want to look better.
That's right. Well, I could talk to you about this subject forever, but I just want to know, because in life where we are today, not to be driven by the past, but certain things have happened to us that are our turning points. Or some people have trauma, some people have something negative, something happened to their loved ones or theirs, whatever, or themselves. Are there any particular turning points in your life that you can talk to that brought you where you are? I do know that your history, you were a student of art history, you were a photographer. I mean, it's always been digital for you, right? It's been something of that. So now over almost 25, 30 years in this space, what is it that's brought you here to this? And it's going to change again, given the multifaceted person that you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I went to school for photography. So my dream was to become a photojournalist. So I did. I went to school for it. I got a.
Were you born here, or were you born in the U.S.? You're an immigrant, right? Is that right?
I was born in Belgium. But then I moved to the United States. Yeah.
As a young child.
With my parents. Yep, exactly. And then I went to school for the most part in the United States on the East Coast. And then I went to university for photography, got my degree in that. And then that was an associate's degree. And then I realized that I may need more for some reason because, the resume requires more. So I went to get a BA. I was contemplating, should I do this or that, the other thing? So I finally settled on art history. Full disclosure, I've never used that degree. I've used my associate's degree plenty because I was a staff photojournalist for a decade, a professional photojournalist for a decade.
Wow.
So I covered many incidents and things that happened in the Washington, D.C. area where that was my stomping ground. Worked way too much and spent way too much money on camera gear, like most photographers. But eventually I saw the writing on the wall. So full disclosure, my tenure as a photographer was from 1996 to 2006. And right around just before 2006, I noticed the writing on the wall where the market was shrinking significantly for photographers specifically. The micro stock photo agencies were selling images for $1, right? That doesn't mean you make a lot of money when you sell an image for $1. Right. and the salaries weren't getting better and the jobs weren't coming as frequently. So I saw the writing on the wall, and I was like, well, how do I pivot from being a photographer, photo editor, etc., to something that I see more future in, a longer future, a longer trajectory. So that shift, to your point, was taking what I already knew about photography, which was sizable amount of information, and realizing that, well, there's a scale of high adventure and for the most part, low pay in photography.
Yes.
So what if I shifted that, right? And I say, okay, well, I'll sacrifice adventure for higher pay. And what is that? Well, it's work that no one else wants to do. And what is that? That's digital asset management. There's very, very few of us. There's about 10, 20,000 of us in the world.
Wow.
There's about 6 of me that in the world that actually do exactly what I do without associating myself to a specific digital asset management vendor. And so I'm a consultant in digital asset management, and I'm vendor neutral. There's over 400 digital asset management systems in the world, and I don't specialize in any of them purposefully. So there are very few of me and people like me. And then there's a number of people that work in digital asset management because it's work that people don't want to do. But it's a need in most organizations. Now, what is digital asset management? To define that, it's the managing of digital media, meaning audio, video, text, graphics, photos, and we all create them on a regular basis, whether it's on our phone, for work, whatever, right? Like just like this video, this audio, right? And now imagine being in a company creating thousands of these, hundreds of thousands of these, millions of these things, right? And then needing to see them and share them inside the organization to repurpose them. So you have to be able to search, then find, then use, and then potentially reuse and repurpose it to get the maximum return on investment on it. Right. And that's the purpose of digital asset management. So I work in the metadata field. I work with digital asset management. I work with the fields and the things to find the stuff that people have already created, and so that they can repurpose it and reuse it as much as possible legally. And not many people want to do that. And I'm okay with that. And I encourage people to. Why do you think that people don't want to do that? Why do people? Because it's boring. Because it's very boring. It's boring to most people. When I try to train people on how to do metadata, they thought, I was like, oh, this is going to be data entry. I'm just going to copy it from this spreadsheet to that. No, you have to like think. Sorry. I'm sorry. You have to use your brain. And then you have to use standards. Oh no. So there are industry standards to one degree or another on a variety of things. But there's a lot of different use cases. So every organization I can think of uses digital asset management. And I have another podcast, one of my many, called Another DAM Podcast, dampodcast.com. Where I interview everything from the Vatican to the Pentagon, from big box stores to fashion organizations, fashion companies, using digital asset management, right? So they all create media. They're not just media companies, right? They're not just, podcasters. They're not just YouTubers, right? Everyone's a media company now, right? Whether you like it or not. That doesn't mean the entire company has to focus on it, but there has to be someone curating that library so that you can find it again. Because if you can't, what's going to happen? You're going to have to recreate that thing. If you can, good luck with recreating historical events, or you have to buy it again. And that's what happens over and over and over again. I can't find that photo. Oh, well, go back to Getty or whatever and buy it again. And again and again and again. And then people get tired of it. And it's like, wow, I spent that much money on finding something over and over again, or I can't find it. And someone else created it a week ago. Right. And this happens with Fortune 500 companies just as much too. There's a well-known Fortune 500 company that'll remain nameless that shot their sandwiches in every country that they're in. The sandwich did not change in every single country. And
Right.
then they spend $1 million on one ad, a single ad, and they couldn't find it again. So it took them 3 people 10 days to find one image, one video. So it's a problem for everyone.
So it's like buried in a server somewhere. So
it could be buried anywhere, right? Thumb drive, your computer, mine, shared drive, cloud.
It's a big problem for individuals and families, right? Because we don't know, how many thousands of things we create, and you can't find them. So you are able to help organizations, not individuals, but organizations, to help with the system so that retrieval is easy. Is that the bottom line of all this?
Exactly. Yes.
And therefore,
so
you do
it should be in seconds.
Yes.
Exactly. It should be you type something in that's relevant, you get some relevant results, and you find your image within seconds, preferably under a minute, and download it, and you can use it for the respective purposes that you should be able to use it for.
Gotcha. Well, I have, in my limited interaction with you, I've noticed how organized you are. So that's a skill that's not easy to find, for sure. Not to mention all the brain work you do and teach people how to think, because that's something we lack in school as well. We do not teach people how to think. They only teach them what to think. So you have multiple podcasts, consultation, publications. So all of this that you've been doing, building and stacking up your experience on all the things, what is your big idea? And in other words, what is the message you're trying to send to the world?
I think there's several. It depends on the audience too, honestly.
I'm talking about you. So the audience will change, and you'll pivot and give them what they need. But I'm saying, what is it? What is the idea?
Well, I want to help people as much as possible, right? That's why I became a consultant, not for the gainful employment, but because I can help as many companies as I want because I'm independent. And I basically came up with a few rules, which anybody can use, honestly, to figure out whether it's dealing with uncertainty or why do I take a job, right? That kind of thing. So it's a matter of setting boundaries and understanding why I would do that, this versus that. One of the first things is, are they listening to me, right? Because as a consultant, if they're not listening to me, why am I there, right?
That's right.
Am I being compensated well? That's kind of important too. Are they treating me well? Well, not always, but you see the writing on the wall pretty quickly if you're not. And more importantly, can I make a difference, right? Because if I can't, why am I there, right? It's like, if you're listening to me and you go, yeah, it's like, so what? It's like, well, if I can make a difference, it's like, why am I talking to everyone? I know I can't change everyone. I'm not there to change everyone. I'm here to help the people who want to be helped, right? Yeah. And if they don't want to change for the better and improve whatever they need to improve specifically, whether it's in digital asset management or whatever they're trying to, whatever that endeavor happens to be. So I do a lot of startup consulting as well. And I'm very, very happy to mentor startups when they want to listen. So not all of them want to listen.
Exactly right.
Because they think they know it all. And they're like, okay, well, good luck. You'll learn the hard way. But I let them fall on their face if they don't want to. Right. I'm totally hands off. It's like, okay, well, and I've led teams that way where they didn't want they didn't want to practice, right? Their startup pitch, right? And they're like, are you sure? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm okay with that. And it's like, and this is a pretty good story. A bit sad in the beginning. It's like, are you sure you don't want to practice your pitch? It's like, no, we're fine. We know our information cold. We have PhDs and no. It's like, okay. So obviously you're a specialist, right? And it's like, okay. So you know your idea and you're gonna knock it out of the park. Okay, great. I look forward to seeing it. So they get up on stage in front of a sizable national audience and they bomb. and they bomb so hard that when they come off, they are crying, crying, because they realized they were not prepared at all. Just because they had a blah 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 degree, or their ego couldn't fit through a double door or whatever. You know, that's not a reason, right? But again, it's help the people who want to be helped, and don't help people who don't want to be helped. It's really clear cut and simple. It's vicious sometimes because it doesn't matter who that person is, whether they're close to you or not. And that's the hardest part of it, right? Whether it's a spouse, child, loved one, friend, best friend or not, or somebody you know really, really needs help for whatever reason, whatever that help is, if they don't want help,
they don't want it,
you cannot help them.
That's right. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So that's probably the realization, the hard realization that you have to adhere to, because you can't help everyone, and you cannot help. You can only help the people who want to be helped.
So in terms of your messaging, so that's about helping people who want the help, and you're there to facilitate that and empower that. That's your big message, right? In a particular space, it doesn't have to be digital. Today it's digital media or synthetic media. Could be something else tomorrow, correct?
True. Yes, absolutely. I purposefully pivot my ideas pretty well. I analyze what's working and what's not. So with 9 books on completely different subjects, you can tell.
Yes. You
guys with 9 podcasts.
Yes. So 9 podcasts. These are 9 podcasts, not episodes, series.
No.
So for those listening to us still and watching us, there'll be a plethora of things underneath the show, in the show notes here. So do check out all of this stuff. I've been I barely scratched the surface on some of them, but there's so much information, and what you produce, amazing. So what title would you choose for the movie about your life?
I'm sorry, which who? Sorry?
What title would you choose? What title would you choose for the movie about your life?
Oh, okay. Interesting. That's a good question. I have not thought of that. I just recently saw some biopics, which we spoke about earlier, which were fascinating, honestly. The Earned Life is Taken by Marshall Goldsmith.
Well, I also love what he says, which is what I do. Do not coach people who don't want to be coached. Don't waste your time.
Yes.
Exactly.
This is true. Yeah. So I've always looked up to him. And as far as the title for a movie about, I
know you were not prepared for this. You could just, you could think about
I'm going to say, persistence wins.
Ooh, I love that. Persistent wins. Okay. Persistence wins. So along the same lines, if this was your last day, how would you choose to spend your last day? You're a very young guy. I'm not even talking about you know what I'm talking about.
Right. Well, if I was terminal, for the sake of argument, regardless of whether it was by old age or something else, right? Probably doing the things I love the most, right? So spending time with my lovely wife. Probably wouldn't be creating that day because I have a number of things already created. So I don't need to spend my last hours editing. Since
you have your boundaries.
Yes, I do. I may put that on autopilot even more, but a lot of that has already been put on autopilot as far as creating media without my assistance anymore. That's another conversation.
So you're creating your avatar already? Your new? Are you creating your?
I have.
Oh, you have.
I have. Yeah. Really? Yes. Yeah. So
you'll live forever.
In theory, my virtual self will. Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a business there for that, right? Where even after your favorite whomever, whether it's a loved one, actor, celebrity, whatever, can continue acting in theory in perpetuity if they want to.
Yes.
Some people are putting it in the world that they do not purposefully. They want to be very, very dead, which is their choice, right? Versus, creating another 1,000 movies a year if they wanted to for their trusts or whatever.
Right. Yeah, posterity.
So yeah, it's always possible. But yeah, I think it would be doing what I love most, spending it in nature, enjoying the people around me that are enjoyable, and yeah, that's probably what I would be doing in the last day.
I wasn't trying to make it a morbid question, but forgive me.
No,
it's
okay.
something I found interesting when I was asked that question.
Well, I am mortal, so it's fair.
You're definitely mortal. So you know a little bit about Bold Conscious Leadership, which is all the movement we started about 3 years ago, and that's what I live for focusing on people who need the help, but are relatively conscious. They're just not as bold as they would like to be. So that's the work I do in coaching. What is, when I say bold to you, and we have a definition in our book about, the five-part definition about what bold is, just our definition, not yours.
Sure.
What does bold mean to you?
I would say it's courageous. It's minimizing fear as much as possible. Eliminating it is hard, right? But minimizing it as much as possible, so that you act, you take action, right? On whatever that thing happens to be. That would be my definition of bold. Because if you don't pull the trigger on something, right, you're just going to potentially have regret if you're the opposite of bold, right? And die with that regret, potentially speaking, which I think, when I was mentoring a 88-year-old startup, one person he was 88 and he had a startup, and he had this thing. He had this awesome project, and he's like, I don't know what I should do. It was like, well, what's your big idea? Who's your audience for this? Because I kind of knew who his audience was. I was like, well, I should approach this organization about it. And it's like, okay, well, so you're 88. And I know what the lifespan of a male in the United States is, and well, you're on bonus time.
Yep. Time.
And he knew that, right? Yeah. So it's like, so you can either pull the trigger and do it, or you can regret it and go to the grave with it. So which one would you rather do? He contacted that organization.
Yeah.
Whether he got the end result that he wanted, that's a different
question,
matter, right?
Yeah.
But exactly, he knows that he tried, right? And he tried and tried and tried, and he did the best he could, right? And that's the most important thing. Because in my belief is there's no such thing as perfection. Perfection is a myth. You cannot define it, and it changes. So right now I'm going to say it's going down. So and in a few years it might go up, but it changes. And so it's an unobtainable goal. When you're doing your best, you know what that is. You can define it, right? Yes. It's like, I'm going to do my best for whatever that is. And that's bold too, right? Yeah. Versus I'm going to do mediocre today or just good enough, which a lot of people do. And we know that, right? Yeah. So that's what my definition for bold is.
That's beautiful, because ultimately it's about the progress you make, rather than, you can strive for perfection and it doesn't exist. But if you don't make progress, or you die with your gifts, more importantly in this point that you're making, right? Well, that's the regret you're going to have, right? Because you didn't take that action. Well, I don't want to call this company because, I don't know, CEO, whoever, he might say no. Well,
right.
It's okay.
Exactly.
He'll tell you, talk to somebody else. Who knows?
Right.
We got to move forward. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd rather die empty of ideas than regretting I didn't ask that person that question or about this thing that I really, really was itching to ask them, right? Whatever that is.
Yep. So moving to conscious now. To do all that you do, and you're very creative, you got to tap into that part of your soul, mind, heart, whatever, that allows you to produce and create. That requires some kind of sustenance of some sort. I don't want to use the word discipline, but it may be that. What practices do you have on a daily basis that allow you to raise or keep your level of consciousness relatively always elevating?
That's fair. Yep. So I've analyzed it for a number of years. Full disclosure. It starts with sleep, shocker, and proper diet, and measuring what is working and what is not. Not just journaling, not just saying, "Oh, I'm grateful for this," or "I'm really sad about that," or whatever, but or "I'd like to work on this better." But tracking like what's working and what's not, and how you're feeling about it, and literally what it has worked and what has not. So I have this is borrowing from Marshall Goldsmith, and actually he borrowed it from Ben Franklin.
Yep.
I have a online survey that I created myself in a Google form with 20 some questions that includes like how many hours of sleep did I get, what kind of exercise did I do, and all that, and I track it. So on a daily basis, it asks me at the end of the day, well, what did I do today as far as how much effort, how much skill, how much how sad was I, how happy was I, et cetera, about just the day in general, right? And did I do something for someone else, et cetera, that kind of thing, and track that and see like, okay, so was I more productive when this happened, or was I less productive when this happened? And you can see the results if you're honest with yourself. You have to be really brutally honest, and it's not hard because most of these are on a scale, right? Yep. There's not even entry of text for a lot of these questions. So it's literally just a scale on a 0 to 4 scale. And so it's either 0 as far as none, like I don't feel guilty today.
No.
The end. It's like, okay, next. That's a 0. Okay. Versus, I forgot my wife's anniversary. Oh, or something, or something like that, right? Which would be terrible, but I have a reminder for that in my calendar. So it is about measuring and looking at my calendar, following my calendar, because I have one calendar, even though I have a work calendar for whatever client I'm working for. It's reflected in my personal calendar as well, as far as when I'm available and when I'm not. As far as when I can take calls with friends, I schedule my calls with friends. I schedule them.
I know that.
Right? I know exactly what part of the day, week, month I'm going to call them. And they know as well. Because if I talk to them every single day, I have nothing to tell them, honestly. And they probably have not that much to tell me about. The weather's great.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The weather is important. I track the weather too, because I noticed that the temperature, I live in South Carolina, so as you do, and the temperature affects my productivity, interestingly enough.
Wow.
So when it's too hot, I don't operate. I relax. When it's too cold, I'm very productive. That just happens to be how I'm built. Right? So hopefully that answers that question.
Well, sure does. Sure does. So we could go on. We'll probably bring you back on another version of this, something else digital media related, I'm sure, or something else. Before we sign off, just wanted to know where they can find you, or other than the things that we've already talked about. Is there a particular way that they can reach you?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Henrik De Gyor. You can also find me on henrikdegyor.com, where you can find all my podcasts and my books, and even schedule calls with me if you wish, and things like that, and see what I'm doing. I write a blog on occasion there, and then you can see all the different kind of podcasts I'm doing, whether it's the ones I mentioned or the other 7 that I didn't, that may be of interest to you. Full disclosure, they're all niche. So there's probably something in there for you, or your family, or someone else that you know of, and maybe something for you if you have that interest in that niche as well. But there's a description to every single one.
Name the niches. Like, I know there are 9 podcasts, but just which series might be of interest, you think, just in general?
Sure. Yeah. So one that may be of interest to more people than others, I would say, is Aging in Place, where I produced that podcast with a fairly well-known doctor who talks about how to accommodate anyone at any age, at any physical ability, at any time, in any stage of life, for aging in place, which is basically, not just your forever home, but, living where you need to live, when you want to live, how you want to live, not just, oh, I'm too old, I need to go to a home, right? There's other options nowadays, especially nowadays.
Wow.
The other one is Another Damn Podcast, which we mentioned, anotherdamnpodcast.com. I was asked to create Blockchain Billions, where I talk about blockchain, not just about crypto. EIR Podcast, which is EIR is Entrepreneur in Residence, where I talk to coaches, startups, entrepreneurs. My Damn Services, which is a company I co-own, where we talk about our different services. That includes digital asset management as well as synthetic media services. Rights.tech. Rights in the sense of intellectual property rights, not human rights. Synthetic media. That's, of course, what we talked about early on in this interview, and as well as tagging.tech, where it's talking about metadata created by machines and by humans. And lastly, my last podcast is around user adoption, meaning how do users adopt your product or service? And I talk to wide variety of companies, both hardware, software, restaurant owners, you name it, with people who are learning how to how to change how they do user adoption to improve user adoption is basically that. And then I have a number of books related to a lot of those podcasts. And yeah, that's how you can find me. So henrikdegyor.com.
Very well. So we'll be putting all that stuff in the bottom. I was actually going to offer a free gift to my audience here if they would just reach out to me, and I'll put my details in there. So for staying through the end of this, would love to share with you a free gift, which I will mention in the show notes. Is there anything else from your perspective you want to close on, Henrik?
No, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
No, it was a real pleasure. My goodness, I learned so much. I learned so much talking to you every single time. So
thanks.
Appreciate the time, and we'll come back to you very soon.
Excellent.
Bye now.